Hello, we're going to go over the Voyager 315. This is a brand new machine for us, and then it's a 2024 model. And this is our first one here in August of 2024. This is a little bit different than our other model on the fact that it has a rotary screw, and we also have a refrigerated dryer built into it. We also have two CAN 35s on the front of it. It has a both in stock filtration at 9,000 feet. This also has the top plates lock in it that has oil. So we're going to come over to the side here, and we'll show you the block here. And you have your main overpressure relief valve here, and this is delivering the Nitrox to the high pressure compressor. This is your oil filter, and your oil pump is a little bit on your back here. You have a couple of overpressure relief valves, like I mentioned, your main one, and you have your second stage over here, and then there's also a first stage overpressure relief valve. So as we come around on the back side here, you have your condensate trap, and it has a drain on it. You might want to stick a hose on this to drain your condensate into like a 5-gallon bucket. You'll probably have to change or drain it every 2 hours, I would say, of operation, depending upon temperature and humidities. This model here actually has the option of carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide in both. So if you have this option, you will have to fill it with a product like soda lock, see a couple of different name brands. But it also has like a vacuum gauge on it that you can read about more in the manual. Okay, coming into your membrane. So you have your input to your membrane here for fresh air. And then we have over here, the air is coming into our heater. And we have some pressure switches here that only allow it to come on when you have pressure to the membrane. We also have an overpressure relief valve. So our air is going to come in from the rotary screw, come up through here, and come into the membrane. Our nitrox is coming out of this port. A little bit of air will come in through this filter, and then what's diluted and mixed will come through the mixing tube and by the sensor right here. This sensor is what we call our permeant sensor that will be reading on the front. As soon as you change your adjustment on your nitrox, this is the sensor that will give you your first reading, and that will be the main reading that you go by to change the knob. But the final output Pro O2 analyzer is the one that you will decide whether what's going into your scuba tank in particular. So we also have this refrigerated dryer. You don't have to leave it on all the time, but you should turn it on 30 minutes before you're going to use the system. This will extend the low pressure filters for the membrane, and it could extend it by 100 hours. So it'd be wise to have this running. If this is not running for some reason, well, then you're only going to get about 100 hours on the filter instead of like 250 hours. So please make sure the dryer is on. And also, I was going to mention that there's nitrogen that comes out of your membrane here, and there's an adjustment here for that. Do not ever change that adjustment unless you are verbally told to do that by Nuvair. Do not change that adjustment. Okay, coming around this side here, we have the motor here that's running your high pressure compressor, and I mentioned the overpressure relief valve for the first stage is located right here. Your oil fill is located here. You also have a crankcase vent here that you could remove if you're going to add for an oil change. If you're going to add any more than probably a half a cup, you're going to want to remove that crankcase vent. And then there is the oil drain hose located right here, the red hose coming off. Now your rotary screw is located in the bottom of the compressor and is a little harder to access, I would say. Coming around the front, we're going to go over all the components here. First off, we have a dial of pressure. So we could set this pressure to whatever point we want to turn off. And as long as we have this switch on auto LP shutdown, the compressors will both turn off when they hit this set pressure. Now we have our cabinet temperature
which could turn off your compressor if you exceed 115 Fahrenheit. This is your heater temp. It should come up to somewhere around maybe 115, 118, but it shouldn't exceed that. And that will be only running when you're producing nitrox. So we have two different compressors here. If you want to only pump regular air, you would only turn on your high pressure. If you want to turn on the nitrox, well, then you have to turn on the high pressure and the low pressure. So we'll go over some of the other analyzers that we have located here. We have our Pro O2 alarm. That's telling you your final output of what percentage of oxygen you're actually producing and then is going into your banks or into your scuba tank. So basically what's coming out of this port, these two ports here. This is the permeate that we talked about with the sensor on the membrane itself. And when you turn this valve here, you're adjusting your nitrox level. So this, when you turn this, you will immediately change your pressure going into the membrane, and then you will see this analyzer go up immediately. When you're gonna pump nitrox and you're gonna get the system started, we're gonna put like a rag in here or something just to muffle the noise, but you would leave this valve open, or you would just leave the vent open when it's hooked up to the scuba tank, and leave the valve to the scuba tank open until both of your analyzers read the mix that you want them to read. Now, we also have a flow meter here. I think that you can just leave it all the time at 1.5 liters. And over here, this has the optional CO2 analyzer. And that is relative to the CO2 scrubber that we mentioned on the VAST. Okay, you have a Pro CO, and this is going to tell you whether you have carbon monoxide. Normally on electric machines, you don't always have a carbon monoxide reading, but it's kind of nice to do that. For instance, in the shop, we have a forklift, so we want to make sure that we're not pulling in any carbon monoxide. But in some countries like Canada or Australia, 500 might be the level that you need to stay below as far as carbon dioxide goes. So, or anyway, this should always remain under 500 in places like Canada and Australia, but in the United States, 1,000 ppm of the mark. Then you have final stage, second stage, first stage. So your first stage probably going to read around 75 psi when you're at an output of 3,000 psi. Your second stage is going to be around probably 750, and your final stage would be reading 3,000 if all those numbers corresponded. But the maximum output of this compressor is normally set at about 5,000 psi. But when pumping nitrox, you'll notice this sticker here says 3,800 psi. So you don't want to exceed 3,800 psi when pumping nitrox due to the partial pressure of the nitrox. Coming back to the CAN 35s, there's a drying filter in one, and then we have a breathing air filter in one. The drying filter is the M for molecular sieve, and then the breathing air is the MHC. So obviously you want to change these based on temperature, humidity, and also check your manual as far as like looking at what the temperature and humidity indicates for changing out the filters. But in general, I would say that you're probably looking at somewhere between 30 to 60 hours. Okay, you're just under your low pressure filters, and that's what I was mentioning. You would change out somewhere between probably 200 and 250, assuming the refrigerator dryer is running. We have some manual drains here for draining the compressor. So, you know, maybe once a day you should, but not everybody does once a day. After you hear the auto drain cycle go off, you can manually open the drains and make sure you're not getting out pure water. If it's vaporized water, that's normal, but if it's running water, that would indicate that one of the auto drains isn't working. Okay, so I think you can see that we are already running this today, and there's already nitrox in the system. So since it's already delivering in air, we kind of cheat the system a little bit and just wave our hands in front of the analyzers to bring them down. You're not going to bring down this very much, because, well, this is what is in our room right now. You could have 500 and a trade show, you would have over 1,000 in the ring. So, okay, these seem zeroed out. Now, this one over here, we want to have at about 20.9, 21.0, really depending upon temperature and humidity if you really want to zero things exactly. So as soon as I put this back on, you're going to see this jump. The only way to really calibrate this one here is to start the high pressure compressor first. And so we're going to start the high pressure compressor. Immediately you see we're drawing straight air through the membrane. And so we want to have that at about 20.9. So we could okay, and then we can now start the low pressure. So it's going to take a few minutes for this to change because we just hit it with a slug of air without nitrox, but now we're going to hit it with the nitrox. As soon as this pressure comes up here, we'll be producing the nitrox. You can hear the pitch of the machine change. You can see the pressure come up. So, let's say, normally it takes a few seconds for it to warm up too, but if we wanted to, say, produce 32% and I turn this knob down, you'll see the pressure go down. So we want about 32%, and it was up at about 40. So maybe I just need to turn it a little bit farther. Okay, so keep in mind, we're allowing here escape from this. And this is purging the air through the filter and allowing it to escape. Okay. This is the outlet temperature, by the way, for the rotary screw. That's the low pressure compressor that's producing the air to the membrane. You're only going to read temperature on this, obviously, if the rotary screw had just been running. Otherwise, you're going to read whatever the ambient temperature is. So, as you can see, we're hovering right around 32%. And the regular air that was running through the system, the 21%, obviously it hit the filtration. Now we're reading what we were pumping when the first minute or two that we started it before the rotary screw kicked in. And we see our nitrox level is climbing. As soon as we hit the 32% or close to it, we could start filling the tank. Now, if we look down here, because it's been running, it heated up a little bit. So maybe what we need to do is just lower it just a little bit. So now we could start filling our tanks. Now we're we're doing the final adjustment that I just made. We're going to have to monitor this for probably the next like 5 minutes to make sure it stabilizes. But the more tanks you fill, the easier it is to get this going, because once you get it set for the 32%, after about 10 minutes, it's pretty stable to the point where you won't have to watch it as much. You can see it's drifting a little higher, so maybe I'm going to lower it just a little bit more. This number and this number will never match exactly. On some of our units, you'll have 2% difference between the two. So keep that in mind. This is what's going into your tank or your bank. This is what's important. This is just a moment in time. This is an average of time. That's why you always want to watch this. I believe this level is high because we don't have the scrubber filled, because we don't send it out with the scrubbing material in it. So right now we're reading a high percentage of carbon dioxide.